Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to End Times Talk. I hope you're having an okay morning. I know it can be stressful with a storm like this that's approaching, and maybe some have lived in the South their whole lives and never really experienced something like this. Um, and I don't want to sound pompous or anything like that in what I'm about to say. It's just facts. People like say in Michigan or like say Alaska or like Minneapolis or Wisconsin, we're not really, and even northwards like Maine maybe and things like that. We're not really super shook about what's going on because we get stuff like this from time to time, and our weather up here during this storm isn't going to be as bad as what's going to be down south. But we have had our times where things have been very difficult up in the north, and so I wanted to offer some survival tips to people that are in the south that are concerned about what's coming and what's happening, and I know that some storms are about to hit and things like that, and I wanted to kind of offer some ideas of things that people can do to be prepared, and if the storm hasn't hit in your area yet, I don't know when this thing is supposed to hit. I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to it, but I know that there's a lot of people that are really concerned about what's happening, and so I wanted to kind of throw some ideas out there for people. First off, important thing is to stay warm. If you're in an area where you have sub-zero temperatures, layers is best, instead of putting like some really thick stuff on. Um, if you have a jacket that has, a means to tie around your waist, like for instance, I wear a military winter jacket. It's the oh man, I forget what it's called. It's the military BDU. It's the military issue BDU jacket is what I wear, and it has like an inner lining that you can button into it, or you can take it out. Depending on the weather. And I like those sort of jackets, and they've always done me pretty well. And but not everybody has that stuff. But usually with those military jackets, they'll have a rope around the bottom of the jacket that is through the lining of the jacket. And you can tie that around your waist and tie it off. Trapping air is very important. You don't want, drafts to come up, that can make you cold or whatever. But even in a situation where if you don't have heat, if, some people don't have heat because they've never experienced crazy cold to where they're going to have to heat their house. There are some people that are out there that don't have it, and so dressing in layers is important in your home to staying warm. What I do, all right, just throwing that out there, I absolutely love pajama pants, man. I'm telling you, that is a friend of mine. And what I do is in the wintertime, because my wife actually won't allow me to kick up the heat above 65. If I'm lucky by myself, I can kick it up to 67 or 68, but we keep it around that temperature. My wife runs kind of hot. She's just hot blooded, and I always try to respect her that I can always put on more layers. And we always have this joke here in Michigan when it gets hot, you can't take off your skin. You know what I mean? So what I do is I have like say like a thinner pair of pajama pants that like it's kind of tight around the ankles. It has like the elastic band around the ankles. I got some like I think they're like Homer Simpson pajamas or something like that. I got from Walmart. And you can wear those underneath your fuzzy pajamas. Your fluffy pajamas, and you can double layer like that and still be comfortable. You don't have to, you know what I mean? And if you're really hard up and you're going to be really cold, you can put some denim on over that. And then as you get more warm, you can take the denim off and just have the pajamas, or you can add layers to it to make it more to make yourself more warm. You can have an undershirt, and then I like to wear an undershirt, a sweatshirt. I mean, there's times where I'm not even joking with you. It's been so cold here where I will throw on a jacket in the house. I'm not past it. I don't have a normalcy bias and in a fashion sense when it comes to um, people trying to get by and be warm in the wintertime. So that's very, very important. Um, anyways, so layers are important. All right. If you have gloves, wear gloves. Some people don't have jackets. I, I think everybody should always have a jacket in case of an emergency like this, but some people don't. You can layer up on sweatshirts. You could have as many as 2, 3, all right? And then as you get super warm, you can take that off, you know? And if there is ever a time you needed to clean your house, now would be the time. You can keep warm moving about your house and keeping busy, for those who you know are kind of going to be shut in with this thing and not going anywhere and kind of hunkering down. We in Michigan we call it posting up. Like when weather gets bad, you post up. And you try to hunker down and weather the storm. And if you're worried about power outages, one, you can have board games, card games, books, really great things to have. You can all do all of those things by candlelight. All of those things by candlelight. So and having candles is important, I think, because there's a lot of things that you can do with that if there is a power outage. Um, Hopefully your power doesn't go out is the main thing. And I'll be honest with you, man, there is times here in Michigan where I live when the power's flickering in the wintertime and I'm on my knees, dear Jesus, please don't let this power go out, Lord. And it doesn't. God is an amazing God and he will protect you through everything. And just say a prayer, put up a prayer to the heavens, man, up to Jesus, and ask him, be like, hey, please keep the power on. And man, he's good to keep the power on. He really is. So that's numero uno. But if the power is to go out, there is things you can do to entertain yourself in situations of boredom and whatnot. I mean, think like what the pioneers would do. They didn't have electricity, and they had to make do and make up a game if you have to. If you got dice or whatever, there's a million things that you can do to stay to keep from being bored. But when it comes to power going out, layers again, wearing layers are important. Get all your blankets, all your sheets, everything like that. Hello, Jenny. Good to see you. Get all your blankets and your sheets in one area, all your pillows, everything that can be an insulator. Um, Things that you can do if you can move around your furniture. Take your chairs in your living room and your couch or whatever, and turn it around and have the back facing outward. Take all the cushions off, lay them on the floor. You can have your couch on one side and some chairs from your kitchen table or your dining room table on the other side, or your kitchen. Some people have their table in their kitchen. That's okay. Um, anyways, you can take that and you can throw a sheet over it, and you can throw depending on how many blankets you have too, and that's a rough thing there, you know. But I will tell you this: that worst case scenario, I mean, you could even use. I mean, I'm trying to think of something off the fly here because all of this that I'm telling you is off the fly, like something I would do if I was in one of y'all's situation. And I'm not saying I'm a survival expert, but I do know a lot about survival because I've studied it a lot. Studied primitive survival or just kind of urban survival and things like that a lot of my life because I always thought it was important information. And so I'm trying to do my best here to give people ideas of what they can do. But yeah, just make a dome basically. Use the backs of your chairs, face those inward. Use the back of your couch or the back of your rocking chair, or not rocking chair. Rocking chair is probably not the best, but the back of your recliner chair or whatever, and kind of get them in a circle that's nice, that's big for your enough for your body. Make sure you have a space to where you can crawl in, but start to layer up stuff and blankets. Put your pillows at the bottom of that so you have a nice comfortable pad at the bottom of that. And if power goes out, it's better to kind of retreat to somewhere smaller, and your body heat will you'll be able to keep your body heat um will last longer in a situation like that. And if you have multiple family members, that's even better, because like look at like what the Inuit do, the Eskimos. They will create an igloo, and they it's actually, snow can be an insulator also in the situation where if it's like you're getting dumped on by snow, because some people are expecting 16, 17, 18 inches. And if you have a gas powered snow blower by any chance, you can take that snow and you can shoot it at the base of your house and build up a bank around your house. And that will also insulate your house and help keep it a little bit warmer. Every time I go out and shovel, I make sure I have like a 3 foot bank around my house. I can only do 2 sides of my house like that, because otherwise it makes no sense. It makes no sense to go out and shovel the grass. But I try to take the snow that where I'm when I'm moving it and pile it up around the house, around my bedroom and around my office area and around my living room, uh, to where it insulates a little bit better, and it does help. Absolutely does help. And uh, there's that. But some people can't go out and shovel, or if it's too cold. I mean, there's some stuff. Like I remember one time in Michigan, we had 36 below zero. It was like straight Yukon, Alaskan, like northern Canadian cold here in Michigan, and you couldn't go outside for 20 minutes or you'll get frostbite and stuff like that. So, you got to be cautious too. And always think of your pets. Like if you have pets, you can get them to consolidate with you, kind of hunker down with you in one of these little forts if your power goes out or whatever. And your pet's body heat will help keep you warm. Get them under the covers with you. Make sure that make sure their head is outside of the covers so they can breathe well, and make sure you have a little, a crack in your fort or whatever you would build, in order for air to flow through, and get fresh oxygen. A little bit of cold coming in isn't going to negate things too much. It's about trying to hunker down and retreat to somewhere a little smaller to stay warmer. And you can have flashlights in there. I don't really suggest having like a lantern or a candle in a fort like that. I really don't. That's pretty dangerous. Things can catch fire pretty quickly, and you don't want to be in a situation like that. So I wouldn't put like a candle in there or anything like that. That'd be pretty bold. And plus the discharge that comes off of those candles can be toxic. The buildup, from the flame burning can, it's not good for your lungs. What you can do is you if you're in a room where, say if you have a smaller living room or even a bedroom, you can build this fort in your smallest bedroom, or a room that's a little bit smaller. And then if you have stands around that room, or shelves or whatever, you can take those candles and you can set them around the room and light them on fire. But I would you gotta say, candles will only last so long. Some people stock up on candles. I actually have quite a few tea. Hold on, I gotta get a drink here. I actually have quite a few teacup candles myself. Sorry, I had to get a drink. I apologize. I actually have quite a few teacup candles myself, and believe it or not, to the contrary, most people wouldn't think this is possible, but you can change the temperature in a room with candles. But you have to make sure when you're doing that stuff, when you're running lanterns, or with lamp oil, or even just candles in general, you want to have a window cracked somewhere in the house to where you're getting fresh air in the house. probably about 2 or 3 inches of a crack. I know it seems crazy, but that's so important to get fresh air in the house. Most you go and you Google it, and they actually tell you the opposite. They tell you to like seal up the house and all this stuff, and that'll in an extended period of time that'll kill you. It will. So be careful, be cautious. If your power goes out. Now, if you're in one of these ice storms, I've been thinking about this, and if you're in one of these ice storms where they're saying 3 inches of ice, like that's crazy, bro. Like that's crazy. And if your power goes out, unfortunately, if you did not open a window, your window could be sealed shut from said ice. And some ideas are you can take a spatula or even a flathead screwdriver, and you got to be real careful. But you're going to have to go out and figure out how to break the seal of ice off of the edge of the window around the edge to where that part can move. You might even have to scrape the whole window down gently, gently, because you break that window, you're in trouble. But to scrape the seal of ice off that window so you can get it open a little bit, because again, if you're going to have candles or things like that, definitely you want a window cracked. Or if you have to, worst case scenario, crack your front door. You can put towels on the top, you can put towels down the side, and just kind of have it toward not so much air is blowing in, and put something in front of the door to keep it from flinging open. But I know it sounds crazy, but every situation is different. So I'm kind of throwing out a bunch of stuff that I would do if I was in y'all's situation in the South. Because a lot of people are not prepared for this thing in the sense of like, what can I do? There's some people who are elderly that don't know, and I'm just trying to throw some ideas out there. But oxygen flow is important. Think about that. Every situation is different. All the weather, it kind of changes from area to area. I mean, where I live, just an hour away, it's a whole different weather, scenario than what it is where I live, and just an So I mean, it doesn't. Everything's different. Everything's different. So you can make a fort. You can put the couch pads on the floor, put blankets over it, have your warmest blankets in there. You know, now I will say this, that about driving. Some people are bold, man, and they'll go out in something like this, and they'll get into an accident because you're not ready for whatever conditions there are. Now I'll tell you, in Michigan, where I live, we're hybrid drivers. People around here, they're a special breed. I have seen some wild drivers in some crazy conditions, but I don't suggest going and getting out in a storm like this, especially if you live in the South and you don't know how to drive in the wintertime. But in an emergency, and I mean, I'm talking an absolute emergency, I'm talking your limb has been cut off and you are bleeding profusely and you have got to get to the hospital now. Okay. You have to drive for conditions. All right. I mean, if it's icy, you're going to be creeping at 10 to 15 miles per hour, if that, all the way to the hospital. You got to go slow. That's the one thing that drivers around here understand in Michigan is you have to drive for conditions. Some people are forced to travel during pretty rough periods of weather in Michigan, and I'm just saying Michigan because I mean that's where I live, but I mean this applies all across the board. But not racing around like you're Jerry the race car driver, or driving the Mach 5. Slow down, speed racer. And you'll probably be all right. You'll probably get where you're going. um, if you're in a vehicle and you get stranded on the side of the road and you're getting pummeled by snow, because like I said, there's some places, I mean, I don't know what it is now. I haven't checked on it recently, but I saw in some areas they're looking at like 2, 3 feet of snow. I don't know if it's still like that, but when I was looking at the weather when I did a couple of days ago, some people were saying that, and if you're in if you get into an accident and you get a freak snowstorm that comes in and pummels your car, it can be pretty dangerous, especially if you're not, prepared for, with the proper clothing and things like that. Like, I think it's always smart to keep like a wool blanket in the car and one of those Mylar emergency blankets. You know, I'm talking about the shiny ones that like they give to like astronauts and things like that. Those are pretty important to have in a vehicle. In your gas and all that stuff is going to only last so long. Again, you have to have a window cracked, just even an inch, and make sure that you're constantly like putting something through that to make sure that's clear of snow. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, uh, in a situation like that, if you're super cold, what you can do is turn on your car for a short period of time, and you can warm up the car a little bit, and then shut it down. Um, anyways, it's really weird comment just to randomly put in there. Anyways, make sure that your tailpipe is uncovered. You don't want that backing up into the vehicle or anything like that. The tailpipe will melt a certain amount of snow, but then it's going to ice and it's going to create a dome. So you have to make sure that the tailpipe is uncovered so exhaust can get out of the car if you are going to, use your car to warm up. So um, if you have any questions, because everybody's situation is different, you might have a certain situation. You can put it in the live chat if you have a question pertaining to like, hey, what if this happens? What do I do here? Not everybody's lucky to have a fireplace and cut wood and a generator and all this stuff, but some people do have that stuff. They do, but again, with a generator, you have to make sure that the exhaust is can be can escape. Things like that. Um, like I was saying, and one of the critical things when you are in freezing weather is in Michigan, you have to let your tap run, and I know it's expensive, but that's important. And they say you want it about the stream of a pencil lead. Most people say a drip. That is not the right way to do things. Your pipes can still burst from a drip. You have got to have a pencil lead sized stream running out of your faucet, an actual stream. I know it goes against all logic, but that will help keep your pipes from bursting. If your pipes burst, you're in big trouble. That ice expands in your pipe, and it can crack that pipe, and it's over with. It is an expensive thing to deal with. And a lot of people think you need to have all your faucets running. You really just need one faucet running to kind of keep your pipes from bursting. So make sure it's a pencil lead, not a drip. You want a pencil lead sized stream. But yeah, candles will help in an emergency. Like if you don't have a candle, it's really difficult when you haven't prepared. Most people live their lives like nothing bad's ever going to happen, and there's a mentality out there that can be quite dangerous. And so, like, if I was a person and I'm just telling you what I would do if I was a person and I did not have candles and I had nothing and my power went out and it's sub-zero temperatures, I would put on layers of warm clothing. I would build a fort in the smallest room in the house, the most insulated room in the house. You probably know what that is. Don't I mean you don't want to be on your porch. You know what I mean? You don't whatever part of your house is more insulated, and then I would take like say my couch or chairs or whatever, and use the backs of them. You would want to turn them around and have the back facing inside your fort, and throw blankets over that. And you know most people have a lot of blankets still. I would hope. Um, if you're one person surviving in a situation and you don't have anybody else inside your house to get warm with, or and where you need a bigger space, you can just use, like, say, three chairs on each side of you from the table, and then you can just fold stuff over that, and make layers, make a dome out of layers, and get inside that, and use couch cushions or whatever. Or, I mean, if you have a mattress that you would prefer, you can put the mattress inside your fort and still be comfortable and not, have a bad back or anything like that. But some people, like for me and my wife, we have one of those king size mattresses, and it's pretty big, and it's hard to maneuver around. Not to say we haven't done it before. There's sometimes where we're like, dude, let's just like camp out and watch TV, and we'll move the mattress into the living room and watch TV, just for fun. But some elderly folk, they can't do that. So take your couch cushions, you know, uh, flushing the toilet. All right. So that's an interest. Yeah. Make a tent. Yep. Make a tent. So flushing the toilet, if you have a stream running in your faucet and that doesn't require power, all right, make sure you have a stream running in your faucet. Your pipes aren't going to freeze. So you'll still be able to flush your toilet. If you have snow, all right. If you have a gas powered stove, and this is why I think they want to get rid of gas powered stoves. Like if you have an electrical stove, you're pretty much screwed. All right, you're pretty much screwed. If you still have power or whatever, that's not a problem. But if you don't have power, that's a big problem. If you have a gas powered stove, or if you can always get a hold of your neighbor. You can dress real warm, make sure you're really covered. Go over to your neighbors and ask them if they have a gas powered stove, and take a big pot. Most people in the South, they do those crawfish boils, where they got the corn cobs and the taters and the crawfish or lobster or whatever, and they put it in a big pot and they boil it up. Take snow or ice or whatever and put it in that, and melt it. And you can pour that in the back of your toilet. But in worst case scenarios, and this is very, very gross, okay? In worst case scenarios, there's a couple other things you could do. They say if it's yellow, let it mellow, and if it's brown, flush it down. Okay, so if you have to go number two, you're obviously going to want to flush that. All right, but if you're going number one, you don't necessarily have to flush that. If it's a survival situation. Now, worst case scenario, if you got two 5-gallon buckets and you got to do business, all right, I suggest that you never, ever, ever urinate or defecate in the same bucket. The reason being is because that stuff can ferment, and it's yuck. So you would want to urinate in one bucket and number two in another, and so you can do that if you can't flush your toilet. You know what I mean? You there's ways of, handling that, and then set it outside until, you can throw it away until the storm's over and done with. So there's things you can do to still use the bathroom and whatnot, but if you don't have water to flush your toilet with, uh, you know, you can take snow and melt it down. I remember one time my buddy, their power went out, and they couldn't pay the bill, and I can't remember why they were doing it. I think it was there was something wrong with their toilet, like they were trying to, still yeah, it was like their water wasn't working or something like that, and they were melting it down and using that to make a bath and all that stuff. I know it seems toxic as all get out, but you can do that, but there's going to be particulates in the water. You probably want to pour it through a screen before you go dumping it into your toilet, because there's going to be sand, pine needles, leaves, pieces of biomatter in there that you're not going to want it to go in your toilet. And absolutely, you can fill your bathtub up. That's a no-brainer. If you got a bathtub, you can fill that up, and you can use that to, um, y- you know, uh, flush your toilet or whatever. I wouldn't use bathtub water per se for drinking water, but I would, you can take kitchen pots and pans and things like that and fill those up and cover them with like a plate or something like that. to where you have extra drinking water, and but if the power goes out and your house is at temperature, okay, and the temperature drops below freezing, you know, bath water can expand. Okay, so if you're in an extended period of cold for days and days in your sub-zero temperatures, don't think your bath water can't freeze, and that will crack your bathtub. That absolutely will. So you got to be careful what you decide to do, and if it's a serious situation, and your toilet water can freeze too, and that's why I gave you the bucket ideas, or I mean, worst case scenario, and you got to go to the bathroom like a number two, man. I mean. There's always a kitchen pot, pick your oldest one that you were going to throw away anyways and use that to go in, because I'm telling you, it is possible for that water in those containers to freeze, and it absolutely can crack whatever it's in. And you don't want to be on the other side of this storm with a cracked bathtub having to replace the whole enchilada. You know what I mean? So just, be aware of that. The thing about survival is every situation is different. Every situation is different. Every scenario is different. Some people have this, some people have that, some people don't have this, some people don't have that. This weather hits here, that weather hits there. So it's very circumstantial when it comes to survival. But, if the Inuit can make an igloo in sub-zero temperatures up in the Yukon and in northern Alaska and all that stuff in the Arctic Circle and all this stuff, and survive and get by, you can too. And that's why I'm saying that dome tent, you know what I mean? I wouldn't necessarily take a tent and put it in your living room, because when you start to put weight on that and blankets and things like that, it's going to crush down. Tents aren't meant to handle that kind of weight. And that's why I'm saying, just like a kid would do, make a fort in your living room, and layers, 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 layers. And if you have to, let me give you an idea here. If you don't have a lot of blankets and you need blankets to keep warm with, and you want to layer up and stay warm inside the shelter, here's something you can do. Take a sheet and put it over, take your sheets in your house for your mattress or whatever, or even rugs. You can use rugs too. You can use curtains. You can use curtains and put that stuff, make your dome, and then you can layer clothing like shirts, things like that, over top of your this dome that you're creating. It creates a god awful mess for when the storm's done, but it'd be better to clean up a mess after a storm's done than lose your life, due to sub-zero temperatures. All right. So, but you can, if you don't want to, use all your blankets and things like that, you can use curtains and rugs and clothing, and you know, I'm sure there's other ideas you can think of, or fabrics of some kind, towels. Even you can use towels to make a fort out of, and enough for you to crawl in there and get your blankets in there, have some padding in there. Make sure you got a book in there, and a flashlight or whatever. Now, like I was saying, I do not suggest having a candle inside that dome tent. You can kill yourself just from the stuff coming off from, um, you know, uh, uh, like I don't know what gas comes off of a candle, but I do know that uh, the exhaust from a candle build up can kill you. So you have to be careful of that. Again, have a crack window, but if you are in a situation to where you have to have a candle inside that tent and it's so cold, you just can't do it, and you have to have a candle inside of there, you have to keep an eye on that thing. You have to keep an eye on that thing. Yeah, it could be carbon monoxide, Marcella. It could be, I don't know. It could be carbon dioxide. I can't remember the name of it. I'm not a scientist, but survival I do not know a lot about. But oxygen flow is number one when it comes to any enclosure. Oxygen flow is number one. Always remember that. Don't let anybody tell you anything different, because you can wind up dead real fast, quick, and in a hurry. And so, but if you are in a situation to where you have to have a candle inside your dome tent and it's big enough and you can set up like a little stand in there, make sure it's at the highest part of your tent is above that candle. You don't want the lower part of your tent. You know what I'm saying? And don't ever go to sleep with the candle burning in your tent. That is just absolute insanity. Make sure you also have your tent cracked a little bit so oxygen flow and the stuff you exhale, the stuff coming off from the candle can escape and new oxygen can come in. And like I said, if you're in a room and you choose your smallest room to put this dome tent in, the most insulated room in your house, make sure a window is cracked anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. I know it sounds against all logic, but it's super important. So there's that stuff. Now, if you have any other questions, you're helping me out because if you have questions on how to survive in the winter in a winter storm, I can't think of everything right off the top of my head, but I probably will have some form of an answer for you if you ask. So don't be afraid to just put in the live chat and ask, because I don't want to leave nothing out. I intended to especially be there for the elderly and things and people like that, or just people that don't know much about this. But from what I see right now, and I'm looking at the radar for this storm, and it's just not there yet. It's building up, it's coming down. Um, Let me see here. I can just probably share this with you guys. I always use the National Weather Service radar. But I mean, like this is the area that it's looking, and I think this is the storm right here that's coming down, that's gonna swoop in like this and go up. If I'm not mistaken. I can't show you like Weather Channel stuff or any of the weather people, but Ryan Hall does a good job on reporting. Max Velocity does a good job on reporting the weather. But a lot of these people have never seen this type of weather too much, unless they're older. Maybe they've seen a storm or two and whatnot, but probably nothing like this. They're saying this is kind of the storm of the century, per se. uh Justice Jane, the foil looking blankets, they're always good to have, and they're really good at reflecting body heat back on you. You can be dressed warm, you can put one of those over you, and then you can put a blanket over that, and it will do a really good job at keeping you warm. Yeah, those foil blankets, they do work. And they're like a mylar is what they are. And if you have time, I don't know, it doesn't look like this storm is hitting yet in the South. All right. And so what I would do if I were you, let's see, a shopping list. What's the best shopping list? What can we go out and get to prepare for said storm? Um, T Sage, that's a good point. You can put towels over the bird cage. And you can put the bird cage in the fort with you if the power goes out. You know what I mean? You can make sure that the towel has an opening so the bird can get oxygen in there. That's super important. You know what I mean? But you can absolutely layer stuff around the bird cage and under the bird cage. All right. And you can, keep the bird warm that way, and put it in the warmest part of the house. That absolutely will help, T Sage. Now, when it comes to shopping list, if you're going to the store and you're trying to like, what do I need? I would get teacup candles and get a few of the bigger candles that have like the 2 and 3 wicks, something you can burn overnight. And I'd stock up. I mean, it's going to be really hard though. I mean, if you can do like an Amazon Prime purchase to where you get a stockpile in 2 days, you can do that. You're probably running out of time doing something like that. I don't know if I would order online for something like that. You can get oil for oil lamps. You can buy an oil lamp. There's different things you can do. Hot hands. Hot hands come in really handy and they last for a long time. You can go to your camping section and they have hot hands, and that's like a packet that you pop the inside of it, and it will start producing heat on its own. And like with like the postal service, I'm really good friends with my postman, and they give those hot hands out to those guys every single day. They give them a few, and they give them extra to have in the back of their truck. And so that's something that uh you know um that you can do. you know uh um Now, if you don't have a jacket, if you have money, you know what I mean, you can buy a jacket. You know, if you have money, you can buy a hoodie sweatshirt. I love hoodies. I wear hoodies all the time in the wintertime. In my house during the wintertime, I'm wearing anywhere from 1 to 2 layers of pajamas, and I'm wearing a hoodie. I got a shirt on and a hoodie at all times. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Every time I go live, I'm in pajamas, man. I'm gonna be warm. You know, like right now. I mean, I'll even show you. Like I got all the stuff off in my office, but I'm sitting here in a hoodie right now. Hold on. I'm sitting here in a hoodie right now. My hair is not combed or nothing like that, but I have a hood on, and I'm trying to be warm right now. You know what I mean? So you know, get rid of your normalcy bias and your and your fashion bias, and that way, you can be warm. You don't have to suffer. And so if you are in a situation where you're, elderly, uh, you can dress warm, put on layers, wear a jacket in your house. My grandmother, she gets very cold, and she'll wear a jacket in the house. She ain't afraid to wear a jacket in the house. So and dress in layers, layer up. That's very important. If you have a fireplace, obviously, you can get um yeah, holding on to Jesus, unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, I would not listen to me. If you are below freezing, I would not. I mean, 32 degrees, you can get away with that. 31 degrees, you can get away with that. 30 degrees, you're kind of playing with rough waters. Anything below that, be careful. All right. You don't want bursted pipes. If you're in a sub-zero temperature area, and you need to write down what the weather is supposed to be like for the extended period, because if your power goes out and you can't charge a phone to get news, you know what I mean? You're going to need to know what to expect for the next few days, and something to help you remember what the temps are supposed to be. They're pretty good with temperatures. They might not be good with like what a storm is going to produce, but you need to write down what to expect during this whole entire storm, from the beginning of it to the end of it. Your whole 7-day forecast. Write that down temperature wise so you don't forget. But you need to keep a pencil lead of water running at all times. You really do. I have a pencil lead running right now where I'm at. And that's just standard. And you'd rather pay a little extra money on your water bill. Some people have well water. That's even better. But you don't have to pay for it. But where we're at, unfortunately, it is what it is. But if you'd rather be able to pay a little extra on the water bill than having to pay for bursted pipes. You know, uh, that's crazy, Justice Jane, how Dollar General has to put the hot hands and toe warmers behind their cashiers because people steal them. Yeah. Yeah, it is Joppy, and it could be. It could also be a dud. It also could be not as bad as they're saying that it is. All the time in Michigan, they're saying, "Oh, this is the end of the world," and it's not that bad. You know, I don't know why they puff things up to be more than what they are. Like the exploding tree thing. Oh my gosh, dude. Oh my gosh. Everybody's buzzing online about the exploding trees. Trees do not explode, people. They don't. They might crack if there's a lot of sap in the tree, and that tree freezes real hard, and it might crack. The trunk might pop open. It might sound like a gunshot, but they're not going to go kaboom and splinters everywhere. And you know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous how the news pumps things up sometimes. But it's better to be ready. We'll put it to you this way: it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And also for the future. you know, going out and buying a bunch of candles and getting ready and having some extra water jugs and stuff like that, it is not a bad idea to have. We're in the end times. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. And you're in the middle of winter, anything can happen. I mean, that stuff can come in handy if your power goes out from, like, say, for instance, I mean, just putting this out there, like, say in the springtime, you could have a cold burst that comes in, and say a really bad storm comes in, a tornado, whatever, knocks power out, and it's cold. You can use candles to stay warm. Buying candles and having an excess of candles is not a bad thing to do. It's just not. It's not a waste of money. If this storm doesn't pan out, you're just ready for the next, because I have a feeling this winter I don't think this is the last of it. I mean, we're almost into getting close into February, and the January and February winter months are the worst, especially for us here in Michigan. And I can tell you our weather basically up here. I was just getting ready to look at that real quick. Yeah, right now we're negative 8 right now. We're -8 right now where we're at. And I mean, that's just, it's gonna kind of warm up a little bit when it comes to, like, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Monday kind of dips back down a little bit, but then it starts to rise up a little bit. This is normal weather for us. Like, I'll be honest with you, they're making a big deal out of it here in Michigan. But the real feel is obviously quite a bit colder, and it's cold, and as you get older, it affects you more. You know what I mean? But for people in Michigan, man, this is normal. This is normal winter. But for people in the South, man, you guys are not, used to this sort of stuff. And that's the people I'm mainly making this video for, is the people in Texas and Louisiana and Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi and Tennessee, and even people in Tennessee and Northern Carolina and stuff. They're a little more prepared for cold weather, because there's little mountainous regions and stuff where they get cold weather. And as you get northward, you just expect it. A little northern Kentucky and into Indiana and Illinois and Ohio and New York and Virginia, West Virginia and Virginia, and those areas, and Missouri, and obviously Kansas and Colorado. Once you get northward, you can kind of draw a line. There's literally, you can kind of see, like, right above Texas, there's a line that runs straight through America. And anything above that line, you can already expect cold weather, to hit periodically. And so it's not a big deal for the north so much. It's really not. But for the people in the south, this is a bigger deal. And that's why I'm kind of making this video, because there's people that have never seen this kind of weather in their lives, down south. Not saying that you haven't, not playing down your survival skills, or that because some people just get prideful and they're like, well, I've seen this and I've seen that. And, I don't think that's what it's about. I just want people to be ready for what's coming, and be able to survive, and you can, if you have, like, you can take a candle, and you can put that in, like, a smaller pot or whatever. And if you have, like, um I'm trying to think of what you could do to kind of cook over a candle. But if you really need to cook over a candle, it can be done. Something that I would do, if you have a metal coffee can. Most people have an old metal coffee can, whether with nails in it in the garage or whatever. You can use one of those triangle can openers, where it just pops a triangle, and around the base of that, flip it upside down to where the opening is up top, but right around the outside edge at the base, you can pop triangles in that. You can set candles in there. That way you still get airflow into the can, and you can cook over that. You can set a pot of water. You can boil some ramen over that. You can bring water to a boil over candles. You might have to put a few teacup candles in there if they're teacup candles or something like that, but it can be done. If you get inventive, there's ways to cook over candles. Candles are awesome. Absolutely awesome. I would get a ton of candles, man. I really would. The longer ones, they're okay for heat if you need to heat a room, but for like cooking and things like that, unless they're shorter, you can use the short once they burn down. You can use them to cook with maybe, but that'd be harder to cook with a longer one. So there's all sorts of different things you can do, and just be inventive, and think on the fly. Every survival situation is different. So I wanted to kind of put something out there. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that with Crisco. You can put a smaller jar with birthday candles as a wick, or yeah, absolutely. So just be inventive. You can even use the oil if you have like tuna fish, cans of tuna fish. You can eat the tuna fish, and you can keep the oil in the can, and that'll even that can be a fuel source. You can so there's different things you can do. And so I feel like I've kind of exhausted what I can talk about, unless anybody's got any questions. I don't want to just leave anybody hanging, but I know I'm not like a survival expert, but basically what I've said is kind of common knowledge, but it's good to kind of have it fresh on your mind. And like I said, it looks like to me right now, like it's okay to go out and stock up. It's okay to go. It doesn't look like the weather is here yet to where it's like, oh my gosh, it's the apocalypse, the apocablizzard. I don't think it's here yet, so I think you guys can go out and stock up, get some candles. Dude, ramen is an amazing thing. It's so easy. Like, I'm telling you right now, in prison they cook ramen without a microwave. They cook ramen with just warm water out of the tap. I mean, ramen can be hydrated and just eaten. It might be a little al dente, or al dente or whatever, but you can still eat, if power goes out. So I always would keep, cup of noodles or ramen or something like that around. You could boil a little bit of water and just, pour it into like a pot and put the ramen in there, and then cover it up with a plate and let the hot water do the cooking for you. So and ramen's cheap, man. Ramen's one of the cheaper foods out there. And I tell people, if when it comes to survival, ramen, rice, and beans, man. Ramen, rice, and beans. So there's ways to survive, and if even on a lower budget, teacup candles are relatively cheap. They're not super expensive, and you can get some, a good amount of packs. Now, I will tell you, it takes it to heat a room, for a day. It takes a lot of candles for teacup candles, so you might want to get some bigger ones. And it's hard because when you go to the store, they have enough stock for maybe a couple of households, just to survive, and then they're gone. So get out there, and hopefully, you can snatch them up and get some, Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, Dollar this, Dollar that. Check all the places. The grocery store even might have some. So there's different places, but it doesn't look like the storm's here yet. And I would definitely go out and try to stock up, get some jugs of water and things like that. Or finish off your milk, rinse out the jug, put some water in that for drinking water. If you got 2 liters of pop, that you drink pop or soda or whatever you call it, you can take that and rinse it out and store water in it for drinking water. If you have 5-gallon buckets, you can fill those up with water for toilet water or whatever. You can fill up your bathtub for toilet water, like someone said earlier. Just be wary of whatever you put water in. If your power goes out and it's sub-zero temperatures, it can crack whatever you put it in. So be cautious of that, because water expands when it turns to ice. That's how it cracks. It expands out. So, all right, I'm off of here, and I hope that in Jesus' mighty name, everybody's safe through this thing. I pray there's no loss of life. I pray that God will supernaturally keep you warm. That's another thing. Pray for God's supernatural warmth, and He'll keep you warm. He really will, and He's going to help you through this. And just be ready, okay? And like I said, I know I'm not a survival expert, but I just felt it on my heart to put out there and say what I can. To be able to help people as much as possible. So I hope what I've said helps even a little bit. May God bless you all. May He keep you. And please don't forget to go out and change this world in which you live. Yeah.